This podcast is going to be evolving in format. It's going to be evolving in context, in structure, in frequency, in so many different
Yeah.
things. So it's kind of fun and kind of exciting.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
lot.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited for the future of the podcast.
Yeah.
If you're good,
Absolutely. I'm good,
I'm
man.
good. We can do official said intro. We can go ahead and start said topics and say, welcome. Hello, welcome on in, everyone. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as It's Guest Gaming, and I'm joined here by a new face. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, who are watching here on YouTube in the video podcast portion. Our new co-host, DefaultDan. DefaultDan, my friend, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. And what is up to you, man?
It's been a heck of a week, to say the absolute least. I have been completely redoing all of my structures as we're getting ready for a brand new amount of content coming out of my own channel, both on Twitch and on
Hmm.
YouTube. And I've been restructuring my agenda, and I've got things going on outside of this. And it's just,
Yeah.
my weeks have gotten crazier and crazier and crazier. And I'm glad I have a consistency anchor with you in this. So I'm honored to
Yeah.
have you be a part of this. Thank you so much for being a part of the Snapback podcast now with me. I'm looking forward to the future with you with this, because we're going to be slowly transitioning this podcast in style also
Hmm.
to a little bit more rapid fire, a lot more topics, a
Yep.
lot more things to talk about. And I mean, for those who do not know Default Dan, we've had a rapport working together now for several years through a
Hmm.
variety of different games. And I mean, this man is my brother, and I am excited to have every public opportunity to rip him apart whenever I can. So now we actually have a platform to do that, and we're gonna have some fun with it along the way. So if you're here watching this on YouTube, you may see this as a live recording, because we will be recording these live on Monday nights on
Hmm.
Default Dan's Twitch channel. And then later on, the secondary podcast will be exclusive to YouTube and audio only.
Hmm.
But if you want to catch the live version of the recording, be a part of the banter in the chat, head over to Default Dan's links down in the description. Join us in the Twitch chat. And I mean, there's a lot of different things coming up this month, but there's
Hmm.
also a lot in the very near-ish future as well. We're talking like also into May and June. So I kind
Yeah.
of want to hit a couple of things on different timelines, if that's all right with you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I just I'm gonna leave it at this. I'm gonna leave it at this. We have a character coming out, and by the time this podcast goes live, this character should probably be live as well, and it's
Yeah.
Snowguard. And Snowguard is a very confusing character to me, because I haven't fully decided if I care.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it's been difficult. It's been difficult with a lot of these cards that have dropped to know, because again, if you're the average player out there, you maybe get one a month, right? And some people out there, if you're truly 100% free to play, you may get one every 2 or 3 months, right? So it's hard to determine how good these cards are as they drop. And I think Snowguard has a very interesting mechanic, but it is curious of how well will it be? How good will Snowguard be
yeah,
uh, when she drops in, based on the mechanic and based on the different characters? So I'm kind of with you, man. When you're looking at the month and the cards that are coming out, is Snowguard going to be worth it? And that's a tough one to decide right off.
for those who cannot see, who are listening on audio, Snowguard is going to be a 1/2 when it is in your deck and appears into your hand. And the effect is, while in your hand, this card transforms each turn into either a hawk or a bear. Now, I didn't know this until earlier today for pulling up these images, but Snowguard Hawk and Snowguard Bear are different manas and powers
Hmm.
than even the original Snowguard. So it goes from being a 1/2 to the Hawk being a 3/4 with the on reveal of ignore all location abilities next turn. And then when
Hmm.
it switches to Bear, it then becomes a 5/3 on reveal of trigger the effect of this location. And I mean, you got a little bit more insight about the Hawk
Mhm.
like order, bear, guard, like can you give me a little like just for the everybody else because you tried
Yeah.
explaining it to me before stream and to be completely honest, I'm still lost because it feels like it's a card I need to see.
Yeah, yeah, and even with the information I know, and again, the reason why there's some information that we know is I am part of the creator program, so we get to ask some questions, and again, most of these answers you guys see, whether it's through the FAQ and things like that. But what was told to us is Snowguard will always change to the Hawk first, and then the Bear, so you don't have to worry about Snowguard coming in a hand and the next turn, Snowguard's a 5-drop bear. It will be the 3-drop hawk. But the curiosity is, and I'm not 100% sure on this, which is kind of where I also need to see it in the game. When she hits your hand, if she instantly changes to the hawk, or if you have a 1/2 that does nothing, that you could play that turn, or if you need to wait till the next turn for to actually turn into the hawk. So little confusion on that first turn she's in your hand, or if it's the following turn. But yeah, there's some locations the hawk's not going to work with. The triggering again, it's going to be the following turn.
Right.
Um, you're going to ignore those, so you have to set it up in. I think when we were talking, some examples are like TVA potentially may or may not work. Again, just with the way it triggers and works compared to being able to ignore something. So again, playing the hawk on um, a location that triggers like
Mini tries lab
Asgard, right? Yeah, yeah.
or yeah, Asgard.
Um,
Yeah, that's another one.
Asgard, Shuri's lab, right? So the next turn they can't use Shuri's lab, so maybe you can catch. I don't know. You're not going to catch anybody with it, I guess, is the big thing, and that's the reason why I'm not sold on Snowguard. They know it's coming because they can see it too. So
Yeah, it just I don't know. I feel like if it wasn't the fact that the costs keep changing, I might feel, I guess,
mhm,
a little differently about it. But the fact that it reads as a 1/2, and
yeah,
then the way I interpret it, and I'm not sure if this is the truth or not, is I read it as it's a 1/2 while it's in your deck. So, for example,
yeah,
when I forget that land that pulls a 1 cost card out of your hand, if that's your
hmm
out of your deck,
hmm
help me out in the chat. Um, it'll pull Snowguard, and then because the effect is while in your hand, each turn it'll transform. So that way, the next turn that starts, it'll switch into a hawk and then start the
yeah,
back and forth process between Snowguard Hawk and Snowguard Bear. Um, it's like it's a more complicated version of why you would want to take advantage of Jeff the Baby Land Shark to ignore the location abilities.
yeah,
And, okay, you're pinned out of this location. Well, I can put this in Plunder Castle now. So, haha. And just like
hmm
Jeff, you can play him anywhere, whenever you wish. Jeff has more to him, obviously. He's a little bit more of an exciting card, in my opinion. But
yeah.
Snowguard, like, with all due respect to my other fellow content creators in this game, um, I feel like this is an absolute waste card until we see those that have unlimited resource to gain gold and collector's tokens and just get
Yeah,
this card or just completely randomly lucky happen to pull a snow guard. Like this one makes
yeah.
me want to wait, especially because it wasn't supposed to be Jeff first
It
originally?
was. It was supposed to be Jeff. And again, these are all data mine stuff, right? So things change, but in the data mine
Yeah.
originally, Jeff was coming first and then Snowguard. They flip-flopped. And even before that, talking about the data mine, when this card was first data mined, all the cards were 1/2s.
Yeah.
So like, and again, maybe it's just the way it was coded or whatever. We didn't see what was on the other cards, but I kind of agree with you on that. Like I would have loved the bear as a 1/2, maybe a 2/2, I don't know. But like being a 5, is there a location I really want to trigger again on 5 for 3 power? I don't feel like there's a location that like that would do anything
Uh
that I would care about enough for that low of a card on 5, right?
I the only positive variant I can see from that would be playing down Snowguard Bear on turn 5 onto Sakar to get someone to chuck out their Taskmaster.
Yeah.
Like that I could potentially see, but that's just because that deck is so prevalent right now that I don't know
Right.
if that's the
But,
reason I would even
but for
want
5,
to have it. Like
yeah,
exactly at
it's
5
like
cost
a
for only
5.
3 power. What?
Well, a 5/3, I'm using leech, and that's going to take
Yeah,
care of their
exactly.
Taskmaster
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. And then
It's
here's the
also
other
going to
thing
take care of their death and
here's the
several
other
other
thing I
cards.
want to know on this. What the hell happens with Mr. Negative?
Uh, I assume it does not affect the cards that it changes into, because at the time in the
Why
deck, you are
not?
correct. It is a 1/2. I mean, I
Mhm.
guess I guess it could, but I feel like it says it changes into those cards. So therefore, if I was going again, card background, magic background, things like that,
Right.
I would imagine these other cards don't exist when Mr. Negative happens. Mr. Negative sees Snowguard, flips Snowguard to a 2/1, but as Snowguard changes to these other cards, doesn't affect them
Right.
because they don't exist at the time of
It
Negative. That would be
yeah, I mean,
my thought.
you're
But
yeah, cuz I that's my thought too. It would be really cool if the bear could be a 3/5, but that's my
yeah.
card like interpretation of it too, just because of
Hmm.
Demon.
Yeah.
The fact that if
So
you flip it, it's going to be a 1/0 and then it turns into the spawned item, which is a 1/6. So I don't know.
So here's my other issue.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the way their energies are, if I have Snowguard in my opening hand, if
Okay.
Snowguard does not turn into the Hawk the moment she comes into your hand, then turn 2, she turns into the Hawk. You can't play it. Turn 3, she turns into the Bear. You can't play it. Turn 4, she turns back into the Hawk, and you've got a 3 power card, a 3 energy card on 4, which is off curve. Turn
Yeah.
5, it's back to the Bear, which you can play on curve. So I don't like the way the energies are right now, unless,
Mm,
but even with this, I don't like this either. But if Snowguard in opening hand changes to Hawk, then turn 2, she's a Bear. Turn 3, she's a Hawk. You're on curve. Turn 4, she's a Bear. You're off curve
yeah.
for the Bear.
Hmm.
Turn 6. So like whatever way they've done this, they needed to be in order 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3. They needed to be in that
Right.
order so that as it starts flipping, and again, that's all based on opening hand, but like
Yeah.
it's off
It
curve.
it just
Somewhere
feels
in
like
this,
there's
it's off
so
curve.
much chance, right? There's just
Yeah.
so much chance in getting this card to work the way you want it to, or maybe like
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it just
So
me? Like I just I don't know.
I'm gonna
I'm
also
curious
say
what the
this.
community thinks too, but
I'm
shoot.
also gonna say this is just like one of the other cards where it's gonna be a wasted variant, because the variant is not going to count for the Bear or the Hawk. And if Snowguard is literally
Yeah.
her variant only on turn 1, it's going to be a waste of it. So I also, that's another thing. I'm not huge into variants, but I love the variants in the game. And when like Mysterio was broken for so long to where it didn't matter if you had a variant or not, it just always was the same card. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
those little nuances, and this will be another one of those. So I'd say pass. If I'm rating on this one, Snowguard's a pass for me when it comes to this season, this month. I think you're better off with Jeff, and even the other one is better than this one, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody's got to find a home for it. I just don't see it
And
very, very
I am
competitive.
just as excited as you to watch somebody else spend their time and effort on this card, because
Yeah.
to me it's just not the case. It just doesn't seem like the exciting card that's
Hmm.
going to break the game. It's not a Shuri. That's not going to
Yeah.
be like, holy crap, this is a like game breaking card. It's one thing if it's cute like Jeff, but it's not like it's a Shuri who's her
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
issue,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
without trying to beat a dead horse, because we all know it. We're all tired of Shuri. All tired of Shuri.
Yeah.
We know that she is going to be nerfed. But for those who didn't read between the lines, the devs kind of already hinted to what the nerf is with her. and that it's not like I've been preaching it for weeks, and Glenn Jones has also put it out there in the FAQs that he acknowledges the 5 cost version of Shuri that has been talked about in the community. And he straight
Yeah.
up says he thinks that that's not going to be an effective way to go. And I'm a little sad to hear that.
Yeah.
Were you on the 5 cost train at all before we talk in detail about it?
There's definitely two ways, and I won't go into the other one yet, but like there's definitely two ways to kind of attack Shuri. The 5 cost, I think the 5 cost it works, but I think it's a bad way too, and we'll discuss that in just a second. But I will say that I am glad that they're realizing it's Shuri after 2 or 3 different nerfs of cards around Shuri, and
Mhm.
them realizing like because the thing is like all of the nerfs that we got to Red Skull now makes Red Skull very hard to play outside of Shuri. Like if you're playing him, like he's still powerful as a 5, he can still hold his own, but there's a few other
Yeah.
5 drops that are better than him at this point. I mean, even like a Captain Marvel or something like that will give you more
Yeah.
out of it because she can move around and things. So I think it's one of those things where he still has a slight deck, but because he's gone from being, a 15 to a 13 to 12 or 11 or whatever he's at now, he's definitely started to hurt himself. Just again, paying for the sins of Shuri and
Yeah.
then not being able to double there. So I don't know. I think that the 5 drop, if we're speaking specifically to that one, I don't like the 5 drop because it's a bad, just like we talked about with the snow bear, it's a bad cost, a 5/2, and even if you make Shuri like a 4 or 5 power, like it just doesn't feel powerful enough on turn 5 to then double up something on turn 6. But I get where people are going at. They're getting the fact that they wanted to get rid of the, Shuri into Taskmaster, or Shuri into Red Skull into Taskmaster, or Shuri into Skip She-Hulk Taskmaster, right? So like
Yeah.
they want to get rid of those two big plays. So I 100% get that, but I definitely think that she has to be dealt with, and I'll kind of put it back over to you. Like, what do you think they should do about Shuri if they're not just going to bump her up to a 5?
I mean, they hinted at it when they put out the patch notes talking about specifically with her. They said, and I quote, "We recognize Shuri is clearly the true offender here, and we have
Mhm.
a balance change for Shuri ready. However, that change to Shuri needs a patch to be implemented. We can't make it via OTA." And for those who don't know what that means, that basically means that it's not going to be just a power up, power down, cost up, cost down.
Mhm.
This is a core mechanic synergy piece that they need to integrate into all aspects of the game that will be heavily affected.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways that I could see them taking advantage of this. I think one of the on brand ones, if you look at the theming of the Black Panther group, you have the
Mhm.
doubling up, obviously, of Black Panther. You have Nakia, who's giving the +2, Okoye, who's giving the +1. I think maybe Shuri kind of breeds into that piece a little bit, and
Mhm.
it could go the Nakia route, or it could go the Black Panther route, where it says the next card you draw gets double
Okay.
power.
Okay.
And I could see that being a lower cost version of Shuri, also putting her at a 3/2 even. So it's just
Okay.
a matter of chance of whatever gets drawn at that turn.
But is it? But is it a chance if you have Howard the Duck in your deck? I got.
This is true
Uh,
too. This is true too. You know, or have a little fun
looking
with it.
forward.
Yeah, exactly. Have a little fun with it with Iron Lad too. Um,
Hmm.
but that could be one version of it. Another version of
Hmm.
it could be allow her to only double the cost, double the power of the next card you play if it's one of the 2 most left cards in your hand. Kind of like what Nakia does, but you can only
Hmm.
target those cards to be doubled or left or right or whatever it is. That's
Yeah.
another variation. I feel like that one's a little bit more niche because then what ends up happening is if you don't have your big card on opening draw, you could just, and that's your, you're
Yeah.
going to play the deck. You're just going to forfeit right on turn one. Well, I didn't get the double up card. We're going to call it a day,
Yeah.
forfeit, moving on. The last version of it is if we take Shuri's mechanic of doubling it on, at a 4 cost and leave it as is, and this is the one I've heard probably the most in the community, but I'm least behind,
Yep.
is double the power of the next card you play at this location.
Okay. Yeah. I
So
mean,
go for it. With those in mind,
so I've
what do
got one more option, but I want to talk about that one specifically. I think that the last one there does not solve the issue
right?
because you just play armor in that location, Shuri, and then Red Skull. You have the same play pattern, which is exactly what they do today anyway, with Taskmaster turn 6 at a different location. So
Yeah.
not a fan of that one. It stops the Cosmo, Shuri, Red
Yeah.
Skull, but it doesn't stop the armor Shuri Red Skull. So I don't think that's a real fix, but I'll give you one more option. Take her down
Okay.
to a 3. So
Okay.
take her down to a 3 because I want to be able to use her later. And double the card you played last. So instead,
Ooh.
it modifies what she does, but turn 5 Red Skull, turn 6 Shuri, doubles my Red Skull, prevents Taskmaster because now Taskmaster would see Shuri. And maybe it throws off your 4, 5, 6 because now you're putting her on 6 with the ability to play another 3, right? Like a big card like Maximus or Polaris or something, right? But
Mm-hmm.
could you could do that to where you could have a big 4 drop, play her on 5, or a big 5 drop, play her on 6 or something like that. Targeting the last one, it allows them to also interact with like a Shang-Chi. If your card was a Red Skull, right? They have time to Shang-Chi the Red Skull before your Shuri flips and doubles them or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps to protect a few cards because now you can use a Captain Marvel who stays under the radar, and then she flips to double your Captain Marvel, depending on priority and stuff. But yeah, I'm thinking that could be some fun
So
potential, but it's a pretty big rework. But
I guess the other aspect into all of this then is to figure out how hard do we want to hurt Taskmaster in this process? Because
yeah,
as much as Shuri is one of the biggest offenders, her partner in crime is the fact
mhm,
that Taskmaster can double whatever that card is. So does it, like, I like your version where it can
yeah,
make one card in particular like double up in power. And it
yep,
does block that combination, but I then revisit the same idea, which is kind of why I think they are still going to tinker with Shuri being a lower cost something,
hmm,
because they don't want to completely kill Taskmaster entirely, but they need to have Taskmaster still have some kind of way to work.
yeah,
Because they did this with Red Skull, right? They changed Red Skull to that 513 with the -1 because they wanted him to have more playability by
yeah,
himself without Shuri. Um, while Shuri Taskmaster exists, that's irrelevant. And
right,
Taskmaster just can still copy up that, like you said, that doubled up She-Hulk on turn 6 if you skip turn 5.
right,
And that's still too much power on 2 cards in the final turn of the game. It's one thing if you're
hmm,
spreading it out over 5, 6 cards and you've got a hit monkey double up variant on Wong and like all those stars align. Sure,
right,
that's great. And don't even get me started about Yellow Jacket. But if you
yeah, yeah,
if you play into the idea of making her be a little bit, keyword, a little bit weaker in her power and
hmm,
cost, I like that it gives her more variability. And somebody here in the live chat also said,
yeah,
just give the next card you play +5 power.
yeah.
Um, Giving the specific next card you play X power routine, I
It's
don't
just a
think
better
that
forge.
speaks. Yeah, it doesn't speak to the synergy of the Black Panther crew as much. And
Yeah,
it's the first thing that came to my mind too was just like Forge Plus. Um, but I like the idea of the retroactive piece because it's only one card in particular, and it
Hmm.
gives,
Hmm.
like, at a 3 cost, for example, it
Yeah.
still makes turn 6 playable.
Yeah.
It really, really playable. Um, I don't know.
It's a hard one. I mean, like Super Tech got out there mentioning the fact that we still haven't talked about this too much, but like Infinite, right? So there is that whole line of like Shuri on 4, skip 5, Infinite on 6 for just a giant Infinite. I think that's a fair play. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
probably not going to win you many games because her power is not very
but
big,
it's a
but
fair play. It's
it's
one
a fair
lane.
play.
It's one lane.
Yeah. I definitely think the difficulty they had with this season, right? And they're having to figure out this season because there was so many games when all of this first came out where you could literally win the game with 3 cards. Shuri Black Panther Zola beat you the game. Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster won you the game.
Yep.
Shuri She-Hulk Taskmaster wins you. There's so many 3-card combos essentially. If they don't have Shang-Chi, or I mean they lose and at
Yeah.
one point it was if they didn't have Arrow, right? Like because Arrow could save you a little bit on the last turn, but now that Taskmaster's a 5 and you can play a 1-drop with Taskmaster and Arrow just grabs the last card, which is the 1-drop,
Mhm.
it's difficult because of that. And I think that that's what they're having to fight against so much is it's such a easy combo to pull off because it's 3 cards. You have a very high likelihood to have those 3 cards in a game. And if you don't, there's some fallbacks within those decks. So yeah, I don't know.
So you've got me thinking on another aspect, just out of curiosity. I don't know if it works thematically
Mhm.
with him, but I could see. It's very clear they're not going to do this, but I'm going to throw this at you for giggles. What if they changed it to not touching Shuri, retouch Red Skull again? He's a 5/12. Sorry, my mistake. He's a 5/8 plus
Mhm.
1 power on reveal for every card at this every card on your opponent's side at this location. So he works the other way around. And
And so you're taking away
and I'm going to have a
the
counterpoint
pluses
to
on
it,
their
to my own
side. Yeah,
point
yeah.
as well in a moment, but I want to see what you think about that.
So now you're looking at a 16, a 20 at most.
Still a most of, the 5/24. If it's a full location by turn 4 by your own doing, you've buried yourself.
Yeah.
And it's an on reveal, so you might be able to keep it nuked with a Cosmo.
Yeah, but I mean, if you haven't touched Shuri, he's still going to be a 16 through a Cosmo.
Right. Yeah.
Which
So
I think
I
it's. I
bring
think it's.
I bring that up because I
Yeah,
did a
yeah.
test. I have been doing a test with what I call the anti-Red Skull deck. And
Hmm.
it's building the Red Skull deck, taking out Red Skull and putting in Abomination
Yeah.
as a 5/9 core as is. Because in my head, I'm like, okay, it's a 5/9. I can double that, and it's the same power as Shuri. It's just the same numbers, just different order of operations. It's no longer the potential for more with Red Skull. Is it enough on turn 5 to protect?
Yeah.
And I bring this up because I'll tell you confidently from testing it, it's completely irrelevant. It just
Hmm.
dies. It just absolutely, like, it. Abomination is already going to be getting a hell of a buff very
Yeah.
soon. And the combination of Shuri into large thing into maybe something else that duplicates it is the issue. So if you nerf Shuri, I'm on the advocate side of also nerfing Taskmaster. And having
Well,
Taskmaster, wait, having
go ahead.
Taskmaster be a 6 cost.
So, all right. So I let's take your two sides of this, right? Your first one is um using something like Abomination, whatever. I think with that, I agree with you. If you're playing the deck the way you play it, it's hiding behind an armor, it's hiding behind a Cosmo, whatever. It's gonna win you a lane. For the most part, most games going to win you a lane. Taskmaster going up to 6. That's an interesting call because usually you always play him on 6.
Mm-hmm.
My only worry is like, and it's in the chat too, but like I do worry that it would hurt him a lot because you do have this, even without Shuri, you do have this skip 5 She-Hulk plus Taskmaster. You do have some interactions with like Typhoid Mary on 4, Taskmaster on 5, and then you like Zola. You know, I mean, there's some ways that you can kind of mess with it. I don't know. I guess where I'm at, and this is what happened with Magic a lot, is they don't like a card and they start messing with every card around it to try to make that card worse. And they end up like really hurting everything else. And they end up killing other cards. And so I'm worried that they've tried that a few times now with Taskmaster. And they did kind of technically nerf Taskmaster. If the card dies before he copies him,
Yeah.
he's a 0. So they already touched him a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I would hate to touch Taskmaster before they try to do something to Shuri, but I am worried that whatever they're doing to Shuri, because going back to your point, it is a patch and not just a small rollout.
Yeah.
It's a change to her mechanic. And so
it's a big
I am
change.
interested to see what they're going to do. So I don't know. I don't
it's
know
gonna
if
be
I would
something
touch
that shakes it up
Taskmaster just yet.
But they have to. They have to shake it up because unfortunately, the community is absolutely detrimentally tired of dealing with probably the same 3 to 4 decks at this point on their climb to infinite, and that's it. And I feel like it's an issue that's hitting more of us in different ways, whether you're somebody who's climbing or you're somebody who's trying to figure out, like, maybe you want to create content. You know, you're someone who's, you know, you're want to make your own podcast just to talk about the game, and or you've just started the game and you're now in this position where, hey, I love this game. I want to spend a lot more time in it, whether it's for, you know, my own leisure, whether it's for, you know, I want to make a YouTube video on a very cool mechanic I found and it's fun. But we have some other core issues at the base of it. And I want to touch on it from that aspect. I want to talk about, you know, again, just like without the Shuri thing, I don't want to beat a dead horse of saying that the MMR, you know, the matchmaking rating system is broken. You know, I don't necessarily want that to be happening. What
I agree.
What I want to talk about, because we've heard that discussion 9 times through Sunday. I want to talk about MMR in a different way. I want to talk about the fact that you and I, specifically, Mr. DefaultDan, and myself, Mr. ItsGuestGaming, and the content creators that are of current existence and are of future existence of this game have a major issue when it comes to MMR. And it roots back to beta. It roots back so far that if you're a content creator or you're wanting to become a content creator for this game, your MMR is all different kinds of fucked up busted based on whatever you've done the last 6 months. It's such an issue that we have false content going out from major content creators that say, oh, this deck works, even though 80% of their matches are bots, because their MMR, their matchmaking rating, is so through the roof that they don't even have an opportunity to regularly go up against actual active members of the community who are grinding for hours a day and maybe hit infinite in the last week of the month. They don't get to play those people. They get to play Jeffrey with the Misty Knight icon. Like, That's
The
who they get.
the
And
kin, but the
yeah,
bot, not
Ken.
the other kin.
Yes. Like they go up against these matches and it creates false content. And it's not me saying, and I don't want this to come across as me ranting the fact that the big names are lying, because that's not my issue here.
Yeah.
Because they're not lying. Their decks work. Their opponents are lying because their opponents aren't real. Their opponents, more often than not, are
Mhm.
not real people. And those game mechanics, those strategies, those human error factors don't come into fact. And
Yeah.
we are now in a position where I think Marvel Snap needs to pull the plug on MMR and say, okay, when May comes,
Yeah.
full reset.
Now they did do in one of the latest updates. They did mention that they are looking at redoing a lot of this. They're looking at, because there's another side of this, right? So there's a lot of aspects to climbing the ladder, and I will go ahead and kind of state for everybody listening and out there in chat and stuff. There are two ways to play Snap right now. There's battle mode, which is direct one-on-one competition, things like that, which is great. But when you're in the world of streaming, it doesn't always work. When you're asking chat, hey, anybody want to battle me? Whatever. Sometimes it works. You know who you're going against, their series 3 plus, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. But I've had many streams. I'm like, all right, chat, let me know who wants to battle. And then there's a few people out there and they're like series 1 or 2. So now I'm having to go grab a different deck because I don't want to beat them down with Galactus when they're series 2,
Yeah.
you know. So so there's that mode, and then there's ladder. And ladder is the one that we focus on so much because it's the easiest one for streamers to stream for 2 hours long, right? Because you get random stuff happening
You're only
and
doing
things like
2-hour
that.
streams? Jesus.
I mean, I'm
Lucky.
just saying, you know, 2 to 4 to 6. Some nights it's 2 a.m. Because I just got to get one more win, you know, 4
Yep.
more cubes. But
So
um,
close.
but I would agree with you in the fact that like what we're seeing is two aspects. One is when the people hit infinite, which hopefully will be solved pretty soon, they're still facing the people that are non-infinite, and they're still using the quote unquote tier 1 decks. So when prior to the Thanos nerf, people were still using Thanos nonstop when they were infinite. You have the bots, so you have the people with super high MMRs that hit infinite in 3 or 4 days because literally 80% of their matches are bots because nobody has a close MMR. And so it doesn't make for great content. One, if you're streaming, people get burnt out from streaming because they're like, this isn't fun because when I stream for my people, like all they're seeing is me playing bots, which are not the best decision makers.
Yep.
If you snap before turn 3, they don't leave, right? So like there's all
Yeah.
these different factors within bots and facing that, as well as to your point, when somebody comes out and says, I've got a deck that has a 80% win rate because they played 25 games against, you know, 20 bots. And not to say the deck's bad because it is winning, but it's different from, okay, I just played 25 people who could read what I was doing and guess where I was going to play. Whereas the occasional bot will have a tech card nobody ever plays to mess with
Yeah.
you, but it doesn't happen often.
Yeah. It's like using, you know, to throw into the baseball references, you know, it's like having a real pitcher versus a pitching machine. The pitching machine has way less variance, and it's going to, you tell it to go do this and it'll do that. And the bots are very similarly. You know, there are bots that are meant to make you lose, there are bots that are meant to make you win, and there are bots that are just trying to play out combinations and percentages and chances to win. And
Yeah.
we know that for a fact in this game, and that's the case. But when you're playing up against a human, just like you're going up against a live pitcher, you know, maybe they make a wrong move. Maybe they, you know, they position their finger for a curveball and actually end up with a splitter because they didn't move it over enough. Like there's the human error aspect to it. And that
I like
is a
GCs.
huge part of this game. Yeah, maybe they emote spam you and just completely throw you off endlessly. You know, some people get thrown off by that. Absolutely. And I just feel that we as a streamer community have a completely different understanding and respect and disrespect for MMR than everybody else. And the problem with that is the fact that we have more voice than the game developers do. And that's not an ego
Mhm.
stroke. The views on YouTube, YouTube Shorts, TikToks, all this free advertising that goes out from Marvel Snap, if the majority of it is us saying, hey, this deck works, and then you go ahead and try said deck, and then deck is piece of shit because that player went up against, 50 bots in 60 matches,
Yeah.
that's a problem. And I think that I mean, cue me in if I'm wrong, but I think that every single month your MMR should reset.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
I
Like
I would agree.
I
I
know what they
mean,
did though with the limiter, but I'm sorry, the limiter didn't fucking work. It didn't. It didn't work. They said, here, we're gonna make it a
so
little bit closer. Like this, so they bring the bottom up, bring the top down. Do you realize how big a
yeah,
gap it is from here to here still? Like it's
yeah,
just
it's tough though. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you on certain levels, right? And
I'm
again,
getting heated.
we always have similar opinions but slightly different opinions. And I will say that in this particular instance, my opinion would be slightly different. And the reason being, if it reset every year, or not every year, every season, you're going to run into an issue where the really good people are now facing the really bad people right at the start. And so now if you think of the people that just barely made Infinite, right? To your point, they grinded the entire season, they made it on the last day, and now when they start, their first 5 days is hitting all of those people that are amazingly good. And so they're hitting the top place finishers in all these tournaments and things like that. And now they've been crushed. Now they've gone from, starting at 70 and now they're down to 50 in the first week or two. And so I do worry about that. And that's the reason why they keep MMR, to try to make sure that doesn't happen. But I 100% agree with you. They have to rework that in some way, because right this second on start, especially this season, we saw a ton of people hit Infinite in the first day or two. And it's because their MMR was high. They only hit
3
bots.
hours. They were
Yeah.
hitting it in 3 hours. Did you see Dara's stream?
Yeah. So
No forfeits. Turn one snap every single time. It was a little over 3 hours. He went from 70 to Infinite.
yeah, but I think he did that on not his main account. He did that on his secondary, which is just
Please
barely
make my point.
Series 3.
Please make my point even
But
more
I-
for me. Thank you.
But I agree. Like, I think his main account, he wouldn't have hit as many bots and stuff as he did. But I agree with you. I think that is one of the issues that they run into. And I think that's because that account he was using was also the account he speed ran to Infinite the season before. So
In 10
literally
hours,
started an
0 to
account.
100.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of those that once you get your MMR so high, which is what we've seen with Codeco getting 1,000, rank 1,000. We saw another
Yeah.
player hit rank 1,000 this past season. And it's once you get so high, you don't see you see like 3 people. I think I saw somebody post, they said, I hit Infinite in a day and I had 5 battles that were not bots. And of those 5 battles, 3 of them were the same person. So it's definitely hard.
So-
and again, I don't look at the cards, because there's a lot of people that'll be like, I click this card, it's a base card with Crackle, and it's an impossible card to get, so it means it's a bot. But I'm too lazy to do that.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure I
no,
hit
I'm not
bots all
doing
the time.
I'm not doing that. But like I feel like the bot situation on when you need to get a bot, was was created out of a need to not have to wait to play the game. The whole point of bots, is so that way you get matched up within X amount of seconds with a battle, so you can just binge it over and over and over. And in many ways, from a social media and from a internet and just all of this like technological standpoint, screen time and attention is king. And keeping the person going and going and going and going is the whole point. So that way you don't feel like there's enough of a lull where maybe you change your mind and then you switch apps. That's what they're trying to avoid from happening, which is one of the purposes of the bot. And I
It's
think
also
it's 15 seconds. Yeah. 15?
Well, it's something like that, but it's also the feel bad. So if you lose 5 or 6 games, they give you a bot.
Well, I'm not talking
I
pity
don't know the
bots. I'm not
number.
talking the
Right,
pity
right.
bots.
But
I'm
I'm saying like
talking matchup
there's
purpose.
yeah, there's 2 reasons why they built them. But to your point, that is a big one to make sure that you don't hit to where it's like, here's 3 minutes of waiting, because I know, again, coming from Magic, Magic Arena, Magic Online, there's a lot of times when you queue up and you're waiting for a while to match up and you're just like, all right, well, I guess I'll come back later. So
Yeah.
you can't have that
Yeah.
in a mobile game.
Right.
So
But I know we'll never get this information. I'd love to know what the data is of the average wait time
yeah.
of a game and what it is currently and how far of it is an outlier that it gets to a
Mhm.
certain point of, okay, now we got to throw in the bot because it's been X amount of seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious about what that metric looks like because I feel like the need to be paired up piece
Mhm.
is what led to 1,000 rank because they're just like,
Mhm.
okay, well, we're not going to find a real person. So, yeah, here's a bot. It's been 5 seconds. Congratulations. Here's a bot. Have
Yeah.
fun. Kick its ass. Like, that's not
Yeah, yeah.
fun though. Like have the bots occasionally is one thing.
Yeah.
For some players, as a content creator, it's really annoying because I can't go up against real people unless if
Yeah.
I, as you said, intentionally go up against someone with the exact mindset of we're going to do battle mode, which is its own strategy piece.
Yeah.
Because the way I
Works
build
very
a
different.
battle mode deck is completely different, completely
Yep.
different than how I'm going to build a deck for ladder. I'm
Mhm.
thinking of so many other cards I wouldn't ever consider on ladder and vice versa. But in
Yeah.
ladder, this need to keep the match going. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like without this international matchmaking, we're not going to ever get that fixed
Yeah.
because we're
Uh,
not getting the big enough pool of people to pull from fast enough.
yeah. I would agree with that. And I think it's a difficult thing for them to have to figure out, right? Because there's a lot of aspects to it, to your point. Speed and time getting there, getting somebody
Yeah.
that's close to your skill level. And again, they also have to do it in rank like brackets. So the other thing I would love to know in the numbers, which we'll never know either, but what is the true number of people who hit infinite? If it truly is 1%, we also have to remember, if it truly is 1%, the first week or two, that means only 1% of the population is at rank 70. And so if you're only seeing 1% of the rank, or 1% of, Marvel Snap in general during that time frame, then when you go up there, I could see you having to get a bot because there's not that many people queuing because it's only 1%. So there's factors in there. I'm just really curious to
I
know,
know
like,
their
how is it,
goal is 5%. I know
Yeah.
that. I remember that from one of the dev Q&As or the FAQs, or I vividly remember them saying the target is 5%.
Right.
So whatever that number is or it isn't, I don't know. But to that point, though, the fact that the content creator community is constantly under a pressure to need to establish themselves and need to be infinite. And
Yeah.
if you were a beta content creator, your path is consistently easy. And if you're not a beta content creator, your path is consistently hard
Yeah.
because there's not enough of a limiter on the top to push people down. Now, to the comment that was made both by you and in the chat here in your Twitch chat as we're recording this
Mhm.
live, you're worried about those at the bottom being matched up with those that were crazy high infinite. I think the loss rate on that and the amount of battles that those top performers, if you will go up
Yeah.
against. First off, those top performers are not going to be over the infinite rank in a day. Maybe it'll be 3 days. And
Mhm.
I don't think that drops down that bottom so much so that they have now an even worse scenario. And even if it did, to that point, the bot system would feed them more bots on the bottom to help them build themselves back up. So they'd be receiving more bots, because if they played more good players, they're going to receive more pity bots as
Yep.
a factor of that. So gaining 8 cubes back because you just had to retreat 5 times, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
That's still a net win. In regards to, worrying about, well, what is it gonna do to overall MMR for the entire community of like, okay, these are the goals. This is, when someone's gonna get paired up with a bot, it's X amount of time. I I think that the fact that we have so much voice as a content creator community, and there's so much pressure on us to get to infinite, that, to be completely fair and honest, the fact that you can't fall below 100
Yep.
once you hit 100 is also a factor of that. The fact that,
Yep.
you know, one of our fellow announcers, Metro, right?
Mm-hmm.
He grinded and grinded and grinded the tough decks to get to infinite.
Yeah.
He got there, I want to say yesterday or the day before. And then today on his stream, he decided to play fun decks. He got to have fun. There was no pressure.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's
Yeah.
like? Like, like, for myself, I'm a content creator that likes to have fun. I like to make theme decks. I mean, we built a deck in chat the other day called the Beef Shimmy Shuri, featuring Hell Cow, Quake, and Shuri. And I want to play this deck, and I want to test and tweak this deck because it would be a fun, silly deck, but I can't tank it
Yeah.
until I
Yeah.
hit
Yeah.
infinite, which means my content is different than everybody else's because I can't test the same way because I have different pressures. And
Yeah.
that's not good.
Well,
That's not
but
healthy.
here's the thing. Here's the thing as we kind of continue down this path, right? So they've also announced we're about to get a whole new game mode or style. So I'm
Yeah.
not talking about Conquest yet. I'm talking about the fact that they've also announced that once you hit infinite, they're going to start doing essentially an infinite leaderboard. So
Yeah.
infinite players will not play below them, but now you're going to have a leaderboard. So a reason to push higher in infinite and not play random crazy decks. Now, again, you can decide that infinite's fine and that's where you're at, but who knows? There could be, if you get the top 1%, you get 10,000 gold. I don't know what
Yeah.
the reward. It may be another card back, it may be whatever, but like there could be stuff that goes, okay, now we get a leaderboard. That's one, bragging rights. So again, being
Yeah.
a content creator, whoever says they're number one on the leaderboard is going to get more views, more whatever, right? Anyway, but yeah, I think that that's going to add a whole interesting aspect to this game too, because now where we used to get to have fun when you got to infinite, you may not be able to do that as much anymore.
Yeah. It's true. We end up with a real issue.
Mhm.
Now, granted, there are these new mechanics coming, and that's its own podcast of,
Yep.
the worry that's going to end up happening between this new
Mhm.
rating system that you can see of how well you're doing and how poor you're doing. And do you do better? Do you do worse? Are you the number 1 in this? Are you the number 8 in this? Are you better than, like, these metrics are gonna either be incredibly helpful or
Yep.
be incredibly toxic. And I'm worried that we're going to continue to have, as I said, this false, unnecessary pressure get put
Yep.
on us as a community to put out content that's going to push toxicity passively because we end up toxic because of said pressures. And,
Yep.
we're eyes and ears for a lot of people. Many content creators have direct connections now to the developer team. We're seeing content creators put out incredibly negative content, and they're some of the biggest names in the game. With, like, it's one thing to swear, like when I say fuck on these podcasts, that's one thing, and I'm being passionate about my point.
Mhm.
I think it's awful when a content creator outright says fuck you, noob, and is just a hazardous piece to instilling that type of energy towards the game. I'm not saying make everything rainbows and unicorns, but
Yep.
talk constructively about the game. And if we don't have the reputation, or not the reputation, wrong word, the ability to create that because of the structure of the game, the content creators end up being negative, which means the game environment
Mhm.
becomes negative. I'm not saying coddle to us at all. I'm saying the core issue of the game are these pressures that we feel as creators, for example, infinite. And what happened in turn? The pressure to become infinite. What do you actually
Yeah.
get for being infinite? Not a hell of a lot. Free to play
You
or spend $1
you get a
billion.
card back.
You get a
You get a
card
card
back.
back. Come on.
Congratulations, it's shiny. That's what you get. That's the real truth there.
I
Does it establish you as a
yeah,
better player? No, I'm sorry, it doesn't.
I
Just
think
means you
I
got there. Woohoo.
again, yeah. And I think that the leaderboard's gonna solve for some of that to add like beyond that, right? To say like, okay, I am the number one, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely agree that there's aspects to it. Again, coming from Magic and having Arena over there, you do have the Mythic. There are a specific number of Mythic players, and you have a you're in the top percentage up until a certain number, and then here's your top 1,000. But I think a lot of that turns around into like a pro circuit, like being able to really truly say like I am one of the top X people in Marvel Snap, and it's not just because I won some random tournament. It's not because I got invited to some invitational whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to as they progress this, you're going to get two worlds, right? And again,
Yeah.
I go back to content creators just like you're mentioning in Magic, you have the top pro whatever people. They're on the pro tours, they're on all the stuff all the time. And then you have the
Right.
fun content creators. And I agree with you on the fact that we need that fun mode, that non-ladder mode to be
Yeah.
able to go in and play our random deck that we want to and not worry about losing cubes, not worry about losing rank, not having
Mhm.
to go up in a battle mode that takes, 30 minutes because of all the rounds or whatever, and they
Mhm.
can predict what your deck does because you beat them the first one, but then the next six they beat you because they know exactly what you're doing. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's what needs to really come so that we can have the fun and creative stuff. And I know you look at creators like Binks or even Cozy and those guys, like they don't show their rank on screen. I think a few of them may have I know Binks just finally hit infinite this past
Yeah.
season, but
Mhm.
it's one of those things where like they just had fun and they never really showed off the rank. They never talked about it. And I think that those are good. And we just need a mode
Yeah.
that helps streamers and content creators to be able to do that without all the pressure of everything else. Because nobody wants to go from
Yeah.
rank 70 to rank 40 because they're wanting to play something fun.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels. Like I love to play fun, cheeky decks, with cards
Yeah.
that are, kind of crappy, just to see what happens. And,
Hmm.
I do that at a psychological cost, knowing that I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to play blank X decks to compensate for it.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks. And I'm excited to see what happens with these resets, and I was just as excited to see that Infinite will no longer have bots. So it's
Yeah.
even more reason to want to push towards Infinite. Hence again,
Hmm.
more pressure. And it's like there's a lot
Come
of
on,
really
guest. You
exciting.
just you just have to get good, guest. Haven't you
I have
seen
to
that
get good.
everywhere on
Yeah,
Facebook and Reddit
get good.
and
Oh yeah,
Discord? Just get good.
exactly. I believe me. Hey, I hit Infinite last season. I was happy with it. And I love to try to have some fun along the way. God for fucking bid. I have fun playing a game. Oh my God. Oh, that's tough. That just makes it tough for everybody. It just does. It does. And you know what? I will continue to put that false pressure on myself and continually gladly sacrifice my reputation and ranking and placement in this community to be able to be known as the guy who plays the fun decks. And then
Yeah.
also, if you want to talk like real game mechanics, let's talk about them. This synergy and looking at the math and the percentages, like I'll go into like full on chalkboard mode, which is fine.
No.
But I just think that we as a creator community have
Hmm.
to remember that we are all in very different points in the game. if you are someone who has hit infinite, probably, we'll say now 3 times, and it took you less than a week each time to do it, you know the amount of bots you're playing. And I
Yeah.
think that needs to be almost caveated in the conversation consistently by those creators. And some do, to their credit, and some don't, to their discredit.
Yeah.
But for those of us that are going up against over 90% real people, you know, I think we do pretty. I do pretty well. I do pretty well. You know, have some fun, and maybe we find a deck that climbs 6, 7, 8 ranks all at once. Hey, you know, we have a good
Yeah.
time. But I worry that if they don't fix MMR soon, we're only going to be hazmat as a community.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
I do
agree with
worry
you. I
about it.
think I know it's on their roadmap. I know it's something they mentioned kind of in that last update about, how they want to address some of that. But I would agree. I think that we need to get that fixed because we did see last season with the first week or two in the Thanos decks, a lot of people infinite early and a lot of people stopped playing. A lot of people took a week or two off.
Yep.
We've already seen that right now in the community where people are hitting infinite really quickly, or some people saying like, "Hey, I don't even really have the drive to do it this season."
Yeah.
With particular decks running around and or just bots and things like that. So it
Yeah.
is something they need to look at. They've got to figure out what that answer is. Hopefully, the changes they have lined up or they're thinking about or whatever will resolve for that. Again, we've got, like I mentioned, the infinite leaderboard and no bots past infinite to try to help with some of that. And then we have potentially this new mode, which is Conquest coming up, which I find fun. So I'm gonna equate it real quick before you dive in there. So over in Arena, so again, I played Hearthstone many years ago. They had similar modes there as well, but over in Arena, essentially you pay your gold, you get to play, and you try to win 8 matches. And if you win, for every match you win, you get X gold back. And eventually, when you break even halfway through your wins, you start to make gold. That's how Arena is set up.
Yeah.
It seems, I don't know, not. It seems similar in the fact that you're going to play through a couple rounds and you're going to win tickets based on where you're at, which allows you to go higher. I also kind of equate this to like Diablo 3 back with like G riffs and things like that. But this is going to give us a way to show like how far can you make it?
Yeah.
Can you beat these and go up? And their battle mode. Their battle mode is centric. So we've been talking about a lot about ladder and how you build your decks over there. Battle mode's a different beast. And so I'm curious when it comes to Conquest, because I know you like the fun decks and things like that. What are your thoughts on the new mode here?
I think that this is a genius way to increase screen time for the players. Because to
Yep.
do well, you have to win 3 series in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take you an hour to get 3 wins in a row. And that's if you
Well,
win all 3 games.
so the question though is, and it's not fully stated here, if you must play them all in a row. So in Arena, like I gave the example, you can play, you can win a couple, you can leave, and you can come back.
I'm pretty sure in the Brody video that it does say at one point in a row. One of
Yeah, but
them is one of the content pieces came out, and I'm pretty sure it says sequentially or in a row.
right. So it depends on how they take that wording. In a row means so like in example in the Arena example,
Boom, boom, boom.
you play 7, and if you which in there you get like 2 losses, but if you lose 2, you're out, meaning you need to win them in a row. But I can play 2 and I can leave and then come back 2 hours later and play and pair up in another one. So I'm wondering
No, no,
if
no, no,
that's
no,
the
no,
style
no.
they're going to have.
No. I don't mean it in the sense of like literally you have to go 1 into 1 into 1. I'm talking in the sense of you have to win 3 times in a row, even if it take a day in between each game. Each battle. It's you have to win, win, win. Whether that takes you an hour or 3 days, you still have three
Yeah.
sequential attempts equaling 3 sequential wins. And with each battle mode, if it's going to be in the same style, sorry, each conquest being in the same style as battle mode with needing to win 10-point system, and each
Yeah.
game's taking a
I get what you're
20-minute
saying.
piece, you could lose a whole hour and throw your phone at the wall, realizing I got so close and lost on the very last game because a damn District X popped up and I got shit. That will
Yeah.
drive people insane, absolutely
Yeah.
insane. Because, I mean, granted, I'm a very firm believer that certain lands should not be in battle mode at all, like District X or Weird World. They should not be in there. That is not the purpose of that mode.
What about Ego?
I'm cool with Ego, but those
I'm cool with the
ones
one
should
that
not be in
doesn't
there.
let me play, but the
At least
other
it plays
ones,
at least it plays my own cards. It plays my own cards. If I built my deck right, it'll figure it out. But I don't want to play your cards, and I don't want to get that much insight, and I don't want random ass cards that comes on out either. I had that earlier today. I had a Jubilee in the deck I was testing, and I had a Jubilee in my hand, and then location 1 pops up, and it was District X. Location 2 popped up, it was Luke's bar. You know what my ass did? I threw that in there randomly 3 times and just had a random game of roulette in Luke's bar. And you know what happened? I lost. And that sucked, but it was fun as all hell. That should not be what battle mode is. That should not be battle mode.
A funnier one was on Facebook. Somebody posted where their opponent was playing Agatha. Their opponent played Wave on 3, and they had Machine World, and it proceeded to play Agatha into Machine World. So their opponent got Agatha.
That's fantastic.
And yeah,
that's fantastic.
I can imagine that would be super salty when Agatha throws the match for you for that. But
oh yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think there's some locations that aren't great in battle mode, and that should be limited. But yeah, I when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? I think it's going to be a certain player for this mode. I think the player for this mode is prepared, just like the people that are playing battle mode. They're prepared to play a lot of matches. I don't think this is a mode for the average player. I think this is a mode for the tournament centric type style player. So
then
if
you're
think
fucked.
Of like,
then you're fucked. Yeah. I'm going to interrupt you on it. Then you're absolutely fucked, and this is the wrong way to do it. That's not why you build a game mode. You don't build a game mode for the elite. You build a game mode for everybody. And if your mindset already going into it is the fact that this game mode is going to be reserved for the elite player, the competitive player, then you're doing it wrong.
I think, I mean, I don't know if it's entirely built for them, but I guarantee that's who will excel in this game mode. So that's the difficult here, because they are, just like we've seen in a lot of games, they are having to cater to 2 sides of Snap. The competitive person that's tired of ladder, is tired of hitting bots and whatever, that wants a battle mode, that can't find good competition in battle mode. So this is where, again, when it comes to these tickets, right, when you're moving up your ranks and your tickets and things like that, this is where eventually you're going to get to a mode where you're only playing like super competitive people, because you're going to get that high up in the ranks. But I don't know. I mean, again, when you mention time, I think of as an example the Snap Fan Open that's coming up. Like it's a 10-hour event. And some people have like complained like, oh, well, you know, if you make it to the final round, this is 8, 9, 10, 11 rounds, 40 minutes a piece in one day of gameplay if you make it to the finals. So it's a very certain mindset of person that wants to do that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying you're going to spend 10 hours doing this, but there will be some people that do. But I would agree with you. I mean, it's playing some battle mode. It is going to be a much bigger time investment than I'm going to run on my smoke break or my water break or whatever at work to play a 5-minute ladder match. Right. So
Yeah, and
Oh,
I mean, that was the evolution of Snap. It was the whole idea of sitting on the john and losing feeling in your ass because you were playing a game for a long ass time. Literally, that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
story. So if you throw that in, it's like, okay, it's supposed to be fast, 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 fast. And I like the idea that they've had now, that they're building a game mode that gives you longer screen time and longer battles
yeah,
without the need to say, hey, are you free? Can we play
yeah,
battle mode? Yay! Like you don't have that part anymore, which is good.
yeah,
Um, I, as pessimistic as I am on certain things today, I am excited for Conquest because I do
yeah.
think, like you said, it is going to present a different type of content for the game for you to choose how
Hmm.
you wish to play the game. And I mean, we said it the second they went live with battle mode. I opened up the game after the refresh. The first thing it
Hmm.
said was game modes in that bottom corner on the joystick.
Yeah,
And I was like, there's more things coming. It doesn't just
yeah, yeah,
say battle mode. And the fact that it said game modes was big. So I was like, okay, we finally got something else to come to. But is it a good thing to have announced it as far out as they did? Or do you think they should have waited until after the Shuri nerf? Let us be
yeah,
frustrated back in March. Wait till after the Shuri nerf is announced and announce it simultaneously that, hey, we're going to fix this and we're going to give you this new game mode coming out in June because they announced this
yeah.
weeks
And the
ago
FAQ,
and
yeah,
it's
and the
still not
FAQ,
coming out until hopefully, quote unquote, June.
yeah. I
Was
think
it
it
too
was.
early?
I think it was the FAQ either today or yesterday when they gave that. We're hoping to launch it in June. I
Hope.
yeah.
Ugh.
It's a yes and a no. One thing I love about the Snap guys, the devs and all of that, is they give us a roadmap.
Yeah.
It's something in many of our games we've asked for, and usually our roadmap is the next week. That's about all we've ever really gotten in the past. Now we get the coming soon, the in development, the in concept. And,
Yeah.
this is one of those things where, yes, the coming soon, June doesn't feel soon. It is 2 months, potentially 3 months away, depending on what part of June. Um, I don't know. I'm glad that they're letting us know they're working on something. And I also think they're doing that to make us not ask about the non-ladder mode, the non-ranked mode, whatever we want to call it. Like I think this was kind of the thing of like, hey, here's your next big thing. Um and just wait for it. Just wait for it. You'll enjoy it. Um I don't
Okay.
know.
So,
I maybe a month too soon. Back to your question.
okay.
I think maybe a month too soon.
All right. So then I'm gonna list these down here because if you're watching on YouTube or here on the live stream, you can see that I've got the development roadmap up. I'm gonna say
Mhm.
out loud the things on the roadmap, and I want you to tell me if they currently exist in the game or not. Okay. On the roadmap, new competitive mode for Conquest.
No.
Okay. Remember that, folks. Continue on. Ready? Card acquisition improvements.
Technically.
Yep. Cool.
Technically.
Token
They
shop.
did add a few. Yep.
Yep. Token shop revamp.
Yeah. Kind of
Yep.
same within there, but yeah, yeah.
Yep. Ranked mode improvements.
Did they do the ranked mood improvements, or are these the ones that are coming?
They did some
So
already.
they did squish it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. And then even more are coming too. Okay. And then the infinite rank revamp.
So that one is a no. That one's still coming.
Okay.
So
So in the coming
that's the whole,
soon,
yeah, yeah.
that's my point. In the coming soon, from when they posted this back in mid-March, so almost a month ago now,
Yeah.
four of them, 4 out of the 6 points showed up the following week.
Yeah.
The other two, one of them is going to be out next month, and then the other one will be out the month at the very end of it, maybe past it, hopefully.
Yeah.
So my further question to all of that is, if coming soon means in their 3-month roadmap, does that mean in development is 6 months out and the PC widescreen UI is 6 months out and global matchmaking is 6 months out?
Probably. So the UI PC, I guarantee you that is not the highest priority for them. To me, that's one of those things where they know the numbers. How many people are actually using Steam compared to their phone? And I'm sure it's a number, right? It's
Mhm.
not a small number, but they're probably looking at that going, okay, what changes in the UI? Right?
Right.
Like what do we add in the UI that matters enough to put our development team there? So I think that
Mhm.
that'll stay on the in development till later this year. September, October at earliest would be my guess.
Okay.
So 6 months or more. Um they did hint at like the smart decks and stuff a little bit. So some of your other stuff, your smart decks, your avatar titles with decks, um, personalized shop, they need to bump that up. But yeah, the rest of those I think are just all like nice to have, and that's why they're in development and they're not in coming soon.
Okay.
In my opinion, global matchmaking, I could see if we're getting rid of bots, we probably need to bump that up.
Yeah.
Um, to help with the bot
I
issue.
I'm gonna throw out the idea that PC widescreen UI should be at the top of that list as it is in writing on this actual image as well. And the reason being is for referring back to the exact same commentary of the last point, which is the content creator community putting out free
Yep.
advertising for the game. And you look at some of the views, the view counts on videos. Did you know that Cozy has a video that's almost hit 300,000 views at this point
Hmm.
in 3 months' time?
Yeah. I've seen a few of those.
Imagine what that would look like if he had the mega awesome widescreen UI master effects going on during gameplay moments. What would those numbers look like? And more importantly, what would those numbers look like for those who are putting out advertisements, who are putting out information to say, hey, you should come join my game. You should come play with me in my community. They put it out on TikTok. They put it out on Twitter. I'm playing this game. And there's this mega awesome animation that happens because of the widescreen UI, because we're playing it on a PC, because we're a content creator more often than not, using it on a PC platform. Why? Like, I look at that as marketing first and
Okay.
foremost.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate though. I'll play
That's why
devil's
you're here.
advocate in here. Is if we make the PC widescreen have things that are different.
Mhm.
So again, I don't like the fact that if you pull up Snap on Steam, it's literally right in the middle of your screen. You have dead space on both sides. Which
Mhm.
again, when we think about our layouts and Twitch and all of that, we have to fill all of that with our camera and our deck stuff and all of that. But if you now go into Steam and say, I'm going to make my animations better, different, I'm going to change to add, like, I don't know, just different things to make it look that much different. It is going to be interesting to see. Now they're going to have to really support two games depending on what you do there. And then does it actually take away from the fact of like, I don't want to play mobile now because it doesn't have the cool animations that the Steam one does. But you've built a mobile game for 70% of your audience.
You don't do it for that reason. You do it to incentivize people to play on PC because of the store. You incentivize people to, yes, it's a mobile game and you can connect your accounts and you can play on mobile, but you can also play at home because the more you play on home, the more you're going to purchase through the Steam store, through the PC client, and the less that they're going to take out from those purchases to go to Valve. Because the Play,
Mm,
for those who don't know, Play Store and iOS Store can range anywhere from 35 upwards of 40% taken out from any purchase you make. So we talk about the idea of like whenever you make a purchase, there are many mouths to feed, right? You
yeah.
have the game, you're paying for the service like iOS, the App Store that's hosting the game. So you make a purchase through it and then maybe you use your PayPal account to pay for it. And you're paying the percentage to PayPal and then you're paying a percentage to iOS. And then also some goes to this and to the government, to the tax. When you pay through Valve, it's a smaller percentage versus paying through mobile. That's why whenever, Twitch streamers are talking about subs, the number 1 and 2 way that we get supported through subs is through Prime subs, number 1, through Twitch Prime. And the second one is those who purchase subs on a computer, because it's less of a percentage that's taken out because you're not paying the mobile fees. So if you buy it on your phone for $5, we might make like $2 out of it. But if you buy it on PC, we might make $3 a little over $3 out of it when all is said and done, depending on the type of tier that you purchased. So put that all together, the same thing ends up being money for the game company the same way. They want to incentivize people to play on PC. Otherwise, if they wanted it to be exclusively mobile, they would have left it at mobile, and they never would have even considered a PC widescreen UI. There's a reason the widescreen UI is even on their development track, and I think it has to do with money more so than it does pretty pictures. But we would use the pretty pictures to incentivize the game, bring more people to the community, because it doesn't take long comparatively nowadays to say, hey, you're a new player, let's get you pool 3 complete. That can be done with all of the things that we've now learned across the way, because there's not that much of a difference between pool 3 complete and pool 4 complete, minus like a few cards along the way that you're gonna get anywho. So
I'm torn on it. I'm torn on it because I also want to see what that UI looks like, because coming from Arena, when you build your UI on Steam, on YouTube, on whatever, there's not a lot of room anymore. And so now when you try to put your camera, you try to put your deck tracker, whatever you may be using, you try to put your chat on the screen, you start to eat up space that you need for your game, or you start to shrink your game down, which defeats the purpose a little bit. So I agree with you though. Like, it would be nice to see what does that widescreen look like because of so much dead space today. But I'm also really curious of what is that layout going to look like, and is it going to be too busy? When you get down to the end of it. So I am surprised it's continually stayed in development. We haven't seen any updates, which again goes back to this 6 months from now. I see it being 6 months from now. I honestly, the one thing that surprises me is the personalized shop. That if they're really looking for money, that personalized shop needs to be incoming soon. Because I say this constantly on stream. I love the Dan Hip variants. I mean, I've got literally right behind me.
It's a Dan thing.
And I've got 30 of 60. And I haven't seen one in probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And the last one I got was Nimrod, which is from the season pass. So like, it's one of those things where like, if it was personalized and I had one every single day, I would use my gold on those. And I would every single day I would get one until I was, complete with the variant. So I'm surprised that isn't further up. Because even though it's tiny, there's so many people out there saying, I want to see better variants. I hate seeing pixels. I see people post on Facebook constantly where they have 5 or 6 pixels in their store. And they're like, I don't like pixels. And I'm like, and if they would just understand that, they would get people's gold.
I mean, they do. It's just, like I said, it's not as high of a priority for them to push that out faster. I think that, the notion that coming soon has brought us 4 of the 6 points so far.
Yeah.
And we'll say 3.5, if you will. And then the rest of it is literally going to be sprinkled to us over the next 10 weeks, if not longer. And then there's the things in development. I would love to see the devs come out with an update to the development roadmap. I'd like to see in May them come through and say, okay, these have been done. This is what's moved up from in development, or these are the ones still in development. This is what's actually coming soon. Here's new things that we're thinking about.
Yeah.
I'd like to get an update.
Do we typically get these every like 2 months?
Roadmaps? I think it's every 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. It might be every 3, but I think we need to get it at least every 2 then, if that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think there's somebody mentioned Kitty in the chat. That's another sore subject.
That's a topic for another cocktail.
a rush card, and then again, no word on that. But I think communication's key. I think what you're getting at is communication's key. We would love to see this every month, every season.
Yeah.
Give us a new roadmap at the beginning of the season to let us know what's kind of coming. Going back to the original question, was Conquest a little early? I think it was a little early, but I think they did that because we were seeing so many people fatigued over ladder. And I think that over the last season, the complaints about the grind being easy or the, game mode being boring or whatever it is, I think it was their response to say, but we've got this other mode where you're going to be able to compete, and it goes along with the infinite rank revamp and all of that. So I think that they did it as a let's get this out. Again, I hope next season the infinite rank I hope is there, and then the following season's Conquest. I'm hoping that's what they're kind of lining up with the roadmap. But I also agree it's very confusing that it's the number one thing on the list. Put them in order of what you think is coming out soon. Maybe that would also help, knowing that it's like at the bottom of the list because it just came out of in development or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about it overall. But I could agree with you of just transparency and getting updated lists, updated roadmaps maybe every season.
Fingers crossed we can get it every season, but I think that either way,
Yeah.
With the good, the bad, and the ugly, there's a lot of really fun, exciting things coming to the game soon-ish, hopefully. That's going to be the theme of the next month and a half. Hopefully, we get that. Hopefully, Shuri comes next week. Hopefully, we get that. But we do know that Snowguard comes next week. We do know that Jeff the Baby Land Shark is going to absolutely break the game in cuteness. And we do know that DefaultDan, I've had an absolutely fantastic time having you here on the Snapback podcast. I'm so glad you've gotten to join me here on this. I appreciate you. For those who are listening, DefaultDan, go ahead and let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to hang out with me over on Twitch and experience these podcasts live, come check me out over on twitch.tv/DefaultDan. We'll be doing them every Monday, starting around 8:30 p.m. Eastern, something like that, each Monday is what we're shooting for. And then if you want to check out some of the YouTube content, youtube.com/DefaultDan, you can find me over there. And then I'm over on Twitter and some stuff like that, just kind of hanging out. But definitely come check us out, hang out with us. Appreciate you guys listening or watching, whether it's live now, live or recorded over on YouTube or on any of the other places you can find the podcast. Again, just appreciate you, guest, bringing me into this because I love chatting with you, man. It's a ton of fun. I just love, talking and analyzing all this stuff with you.
It's nice to talk publicly about some of this with you too, because we talk all the time, but it's another thing like to talk with you with the idea of making content and just because we'll talk about some of this already off stream, but every single time we could talk about this, all of these topics again next week and have completely new points to add on to it. And that's why I love chatting with you. And I'm so glad that you're here with us. For those who are finding this podcast for the first time, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. You can catch me streaming 4 to 5 times a week over on twitch.tv / whatever it is, a splash or slash, either or. It's Guest Gaming. Find me at the same name on all of the socials, YouTube, Discord, Twitter, Reddit, you name it, you can find it. So I appreciate you so much hanging out with me today, good sir, because this was a lot of fun. And this is the Snapback Podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Say bye, dude.
See ya.
We got to figure out a better long-term outro for you, though. Like, you can't just like say see ya and that's it.
Take it easy.
Why did you develop overalls as you needed to say your outro?
Because this is me. I'm from the country. See you over yonder.
You're from Florida.